when you talk about home field advantage, Green Bay is a perfect example. I've always given this example because people rave about Lambeau Field, yada, 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 and especially late in the season and what the advantage they have.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Thursday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, John McMullen, back as we inch closer to the Week 10 matchup. John, it feels a little weird, a Monday night game. We do not have the game this weekend. We'll have another Birds 365 next week before we have a chance to get to this Week 10 game, but we are inching closer, coming off a bye week. Feels like forever since the Birds have played football. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Thursday morning, brother?
Good. I thought it was Friday. I'm all discombobulated. It's like training camp. I don't know what day it is because of the bye week and the trade deadline and not playing on Sunday. You know, football people like today, somebody will slip and say Wednesday because today's a Wednesday in football parlance. But it's not Wednesday. It's Thursday. You get an extra day, and I just thought about that. I don't have to pick the game until Monday, so
yeah, right.
because I'm going back and I'm jockeying back and forth on this game. I am. I think this is a tough spot, as I mentioned, for the Eagles. I think they're the better team, but I think this is a tough spot for them.
I'm feeling good about the Birds. John, what's on the? Let's start there, though. Let's start with what's on the agenda for the Birds today. Again, it feels like forever since the Eagles have played football. It's a bunch of trade news and roster movements and all sorts of different things that have happened for the last 10 plus days. But what's on the agenda today for the Birds as we now get ready, get into that game prep mode for Week 10 versus the Packers?
Yeah, it's a Wednesday, so that means Nick Sirianni's going to talk at noon, a little after noon, 12:10-ish, practice 3:05-ish, locker room 4:45. Jaelan Hurts will speak during the locker room period as well. So typical Wednesday on a Thursday in South Philadelphia, if you want to keep that straight. But you point out the Eagles, so they return to the practice field today, as I said, on Thursday afternoon. By the way, I put this on X if everybody wants to see it. But one of the first comments, so I tweet Zander, Eagles return to the practice field on Thursday afternoon. Since they last played on October 26th, here's what's gone down. Now, I'll talk about everything that's gone down, but the first comment I got is, are they practicing today? It's like, come on, can you read the first sentence at least? So early on, pet peeve, I'm like, come on. But anyway, so if you think about it, so they beat the Giants on October 26th. On the 27th, they released Barry Nickerson. They released Titus Leo from the practice squad. On the 28th, they brought Nickerson back to the practice squad. On the 29th, that's when they agreed to the Michael Carter trade for John Mechie and a swap of late 2027 picks. Then on the 1st, then the Alexander trade came, which they got Alexander in the 2027 7th for a 2026 6th. Plus, they also placed Marcus Epps and Azeez Ojulari on injured reserve. Then at Howie took off the 2nd. On the 3rd, the Jaelan Phillips, the splash trade came down. 3rd round pick to Miami. They also brought Danny Gray back to the practice squad. Release Sua Opeta from the practice squad. On the 4th, they opened the 21-day practice window for Nolan Smith. Positive sign there. They released Patrick Johnson and Terrace Marshall from the practice squad. Yesterday, they brought Patrick Johnson back to the practice squad. That's almost every single day they did something. And that's a lot of upheaval for this time of year.
Yeah, it is, man. A lot of moves there, John. What sticks out? I mean, I think there's one thing that specifically sticks out to me. The Eagles will come back from the bye week, John, with counting Nolan Smith, with 3 additional edge rushers. You got Nolan Smith, you got Graham, and you got Jaelan Phillips. I mean, that's an opportunity for Vic to maybe change some things up. I'm curious to see what he does, but that really sticks out to me.
Yeah, and more depth in the secondary. So if you think about it, all the moves were defensive related, which tells you how he, didn't get enough for Vic Fangio to start the season, which I think we all knew, but now that you're halfway through the season, now you see the window remains open despite those deficiencies on the defensive side. Time to go get some supporting troops, so to speak, and we'll see if it works out.
Yeah, we will see if it works out. A lot of moves for the Philadelphia Eagles in the last 10-day window, as John just pointed out. They will be back on the field on Monday. It is going to be a good matchup. The Packers are obviously a good team, ranked out pretty high in most statistical categories, but they are a streaky team. I think, John, you've pointed this out. Aren't the Eagles kind of a streaky team too, in a way? I feel like a lot.
Yeah, very. I mean, they have these awful halves and good halves, and it got a little bit better at Minnesota and the Giants, but still not where people think it should be from an offensive perspective, at least from the talent level. And as I said, if you're just going by NFL rankings, the Packers are a hell of a lot better than the Eagles on both sides of the football, just from a ranking standpoint. So I do think a lot of people in Philadelphia are sleeping on that team. I do think that because they lost to Carolina.
Well, yeah, they lost to Carolina. They lost to the Browns. And, both of those games, they look kind of like a shell of themselves. But, look, they get a great defense, obviously a great defensive line. They're going to be able to get pressure. And it's going to be interesting to see kind of how these two teams match up. John, you think it's an advantage for the Eagles that they had the bye week here? Or you're an advantage guy there, right? Like some people are like, oh, it's a long time since you've played. Is there, you know what I mean? Is there any in-season quick rust you might have to shake off? Rust is probably not the right word because they've played 8 games, but how do you kind of view that element of it?
Yeah, well, they've generally been very good with extra time to prepare. They've lost 1 game basically in the Nick Sirianni era, but I hesitate with those stats only from the standpoint of they win every game. So all these stats are good. So I don't know if that's extra preparation or just that they're good. It's usually they're good. I mean, that's usually everything. When you talk about home field advantage, Green Bay is a perfect example. I've always given this example because people rave about Lambeau Field, yada, 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 and especially late in the season and what the advantage they have. Look, it didn't exist. Their home field advantage didn't exist between Bart Starr and Brett Favre for 2 decades because they stunk. I mean, if you're not good, there's no advantage to anything. So I don't think it's an advantage. I don't think it's a disadvantage. I just think the Eagles have been very good, and they generally win whatever the circumstance is, and they have during this stretch of football. So I don't really pay that much into it, other than they've been very successful. The 1 game they lost was Super Bowl 57 with the extra time, and obviously they were right in that game and probably outplayed Kansas City. So they've been very successful with extra time to prepare, even if you see coming off the Giants game in the mini bye. And they were rebooted a little bit there, hyper-focused, I talked about, and they played very well. So they generally take advantage of it. So you have to give the coaching staff credit for that. But I'd also say, look, if they had the Jets talent, they're probably not winning. So to me, it's all about they're just good.
They are good. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. We had Wayne Larrivee on, John, yesterday. Real quick, I'll give you some intel from Wayne. Wayne is the Merrill Reese of the Packers, basically. Yeah. Well, just for those who don't know who Wayne is, Wayne Larrivee is the Merrill Reese of the Packers. And he checked in on the National Football Show yesterday. Great interview with him, a little behind enemy lines segment. And Sills asked him about Jaire Alexander, John. And he pointed to a game in 2021 where Najee Harris ran into him and he broke his collarbone. And he said since that point, Jaire Alexander has never been the same player. He's had good moments, but that is the turning point of Jaire Alexander's career. And he also said he thinks his best days are behind him. He said he's a great guy. He loves him as a person. But as a football player, he thinks Jaire Alexander is cooked. I thought that was interesting because obviously that's a guy who saw him up close and personal for a long time.
Yeah, well, I mean, clearly he's not, he's not at the height of his career. I mean, but
Yeah, obviously.
to point of 2021 in that injury, and that's the kind of stuff you get from people around the team all the time. I would point out that in 2022 he was still a second team All Pro, so he was able to come back from that injury and play at a high level. Maybe not in 2020, like maybe Wayne's point. He was the best cornerback in football. You can make a strong argument that he was the best cornerback in football. So maybe he didn't play that level in 2022, but he was still really good. And then the drop off started because of other injuries. Since then, he's played 16 total games over 2.5 seasons. So he's had a number of injuries. But clearly he's not the same player he was in 2020. Can he be a competent player? Can he be better than Keely Ringo? Can he be better than Adoree Jackson? Can he be better than Jacorian Bennett? Well, the guy in Baltimore wasn't. So to me, this is it's weird because he's got the biggest name of the three acquisitions, but I think he's the least relevant of the three acquisitions.
Yeah, that was my next question. You think Michael Carter has a bigger impact than Jaire Alexander for this team?
Yeah, because they have a focused role already in mind for Michael Carter.
Right.
And that's, backup slot and backup safety. And Avonte Maddox's role, basically. And they have that set up for him. Again, he's not going to be starter, but it gives Vic more options and more flexibility, which is what they wanted. And he's got to me a pretty clearly defined role walking into the building today. Jaire is like, as I said, it's like a dart throw. Maybe lightning strikes and you got something, and maybe he's not even relevant and he's a footnote. And I think it's for what they gave up, which was essentially nothing. I think it's a worthy dart throw. Take a shot, aim for the bullseye, see if it hits. But I think because of his name value, because he was a two-time All-Pro, and for whatever reason, everybody thinks they are in stasis forever. As Wayne points out, hasn't been the same player, period.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, he obviously spent a lot of time in Green Bay, so that's going to be interesting. I don't think there's any competitive advantage there, really, but people like to use that he played there for a long time. Maybe there's something to it. All right, John, plenty of topics to get into today. I got a list of them here. We will get into all of them. I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. Don't forget to hit that like button. We've been killing it on likes, everybody. So a big shout out to Birds 365. Nation, all of our great viewers here for hitting that like button. You guys have been, I think we've been beating up on Big Sills. Sills, if you're listening, you're going to have to get your the Big Sills army back on your like button, because I think we might have you beat. All right, so hit that like button, everybody. All super chats we will take today. We got a fully opened up show on this Thursday afternoon, so anybody that wants some feedback, wants a Q&A, or ask some questions here, we will take them on Birds 365. Let's go to my boy Alexander Harris. What's going on, brother? As I deliver these Doritos across the United States, I just want to vent and say WIP gets on my nerves. The way they say anything for traffic grinds my gears, and they make my ass itch. Okay, y'all have a good one.
Grinds your gears. That's an old Peter Griffin preference. I like it. Grind my gears. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I don't worry about it. But if you're in the truck all day and you got to listen to it, my condolences. I would listen to something else. But hey,
he needs a 4-hour Birds 365. Is
whatever floats your boat. I mean, there's different styles, and they're very successful. You can't, but they have a different style, and they're gonna say shit occasionally for engagement. It is what it is.
It is what it is. They also pay a pretty penny to have access to the Birds. All right. So good stuff. Good stuff going on there. Appreciate you, Alexander Harris, for checking in here as we get closer to this Week 10 I can't believe we're already at week 10, John. I know you say it doesn't go fast, but holy crap, this thing is going fast for me. We are, halfway through the season, maybe a little further than halfway coming in. John, let's get into my first topic here today. I want to ask you about the Fangio, and it's kind of playing into what we just talked about with the additions of the corners, with the 3 new edge rushers coming in after the bye week, one being Nolan Smith returning from IR. But Vic Fangio adjustments, with 3 new edge rushers, you got 2 new corners back there. What kind of adjustments do you expect from Vic Fangio? What do you expect to see change with the defense, if anything? Maybe nothing. Maybe you just have different guys out there. But how do you think Vic is going to approach, the second half of the season with all the new reinforcements he's added?
Yeah, well, I mean, on the pass rush, it just the players are changing. That's basically it. On the back end, maybe he gets a little bit more flexibility to do some different things. Maybe not. But I think people in Philadelphia are well versed with how Vic runs the defense, and that nothing's going to change schematically, other than he might have a few more cards to play with the versatility. And certainly the players. And, I think the big bet is that Jaelan Phillips and Nolan Smith will, help out the secondary a little bit more than what has been going on. And I think that should improve things. But no, he's not gonna change very much. You just might see a little bit more because he's got better players and he can do some different things.
Yeah, looking at quite a few first-round picks, John, on that defensive line. I think it was Ray Didinger who brought that up. Jaelan Phillips, first-round pick. Nolan Smith, first-round pick. Jalen Carter, first-round pick. Jordan Davis, first-round pick. A lot of first-rounders up on that defensive line, Johnny Mac. It's time for them to make some hay.
Yeah, well, Jaire's a first-round pick, but again, that, by the way, did Ray say former first-round picks? He seems like a stickler.
I don't know.
He seems like a stickler. He would do it right. They're not former first-round picks. They're always first-round.
I didn't say former, right? I've listened.
No. I was just curious because everybody does it, but Ray seems to be. Ray would be the one I would bet on that doesn't do it. But that was just a tangent. Yeah, I mean, life moves fast, as I always say, with first-round picks. So again, Jaire being the perfect example, 2018, 18th overall pick. What does that mean today? Not much,
Well, there is a pedigree level, no? I mean, you always talk about that sometimes where there's a,
Well, there's demonstrated performance, but he's not the same player, as Wayne pointed out. But he knows how to play. At that point, the football intelligence, the football IQ, the understanding of the game is there. But this game moves quickly, as I said, and it's generally a young man's game. So a lot of times, you're a better player as a veteran, but the young kid just overwhelms you with his athleticism. And they might not even know what they're doing, but they're just so gifted, they can overwhelm you. So it's a very fast moving sport. And injuries impact things but first round picks who were successful at some point, the one thing you can say is they know how to play for the most part. And I would put Jaire in that category. But for those expecting to see the 2020 Jaire Alexander, I think you're going to be disappointed. That's all I'm trying to say.